Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Africa.
Hello and welcome to Africa Watch on the Dr. Mumbi Show. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I pray you're well in all your ways and that you are living your best life. Thanks to everybody that has subscribed to the channel. You guys are super, super awesome. Thanks to everyone that supports us through our PayPal and our Patreon. Really appreciate each and every single one of you. You're amazing. Our PayPal is back online. Thanks to our growing Patreon family as well. Just sending all kinds of love. And now, Kagame. Yeah, President Paul Kagame showed us why a lot of people consider him to be like the Pan-Africanist leader right now, even though there's a lot of questions surrounding a lot of issues, which I won't get into now. He actually has been causing all kinds of ripples across the African continent after an interview he did with a lady called Catherine Nicholson on French 24 in Europe, called, I think, Europe Today or something today, whatever, where he actually literally ended up fighting with this lady when he was called out on the human rights record, and he even called out Europe and said, you know, Europe has the worst European human rights record. But just before I get into that, look at how the conversation, we're going to show you when the conversation started to disintegrate. If you want to see the full interview, we'll put the link below, or you can look for it at the French 24 news site. But look at, just take a listen to this and how, you know, how obnoxious this reporter is. She's gross. Take a listen.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Africa.
I think this kind of discussion, which has gone on for a very long time around, sounds a bit cynical in a sense. In fact, it's like the tragic situation of 1994 isn't considered even a violation of human rights. It has now gone into the background. Those who are responsible for it, those who are associated with it, are now talking about something else. According to them, the situation in Rwanda is that of human rights violation, even more than that tragic situation. I think that's what we are talking about. So,
well, just for example, there was an Amnesty International wrote a report in the lead up to the 2017 election that talks about opposition politicians, journalists, human rights defenders being jailed, physically attacked, even killed.
I think you're interested in
forced into exile or silence. So I'm just interested in your idea of that assessment of your country.
Raising your views to the audience so that you influence them by what you're
the European
asking.
Union sees itself very much as an exporter of human rights and a defender of human rights.
So why can't you let me answer this?
I'm very interested in
Otherwise,
your answer.
you are going to ask and then answer yourself.
I'm very
at the
interested
same
in
time.
your answer. I'm giving you some context
No,
on why I'm asking.
You're asking and giving answer at the same time. So
please tell me, what do you make of this assessment?
I think it's just ridiculous because there is nothing like human rights minus these things we are talking about. What we are talking about in terms of development. These are human rights. Development, schools, education, health, and food security. And, you know, when you see now the level of poverty has decreased almost by 60%. So these people, these human beings with improved lives and participating in that themselves to improve their own lives, gets lost in what the whole list you've been spelling out as if, you know, what is in Rwanda is really hell. In fact, forgetting the hell that we have gone through, that we stood against and sorted out when you were there just talking about more or less nonsense. Because
do you reject the accusations, for example, from Amnesty International?
Absolute rubbish.
You reject
Rwanda
that?
is completely different from what it was 25 years ago. In fact, maybe you need to be looking around in Europe. You are violating people's rights. When we have this problem of people being bundled and sent back to sink in the Mediterranean and so on, and so many people being mistreated in your own countries. Why don't you talk about your human rights and stop just offloading everything.
Well, this is a development conversation, so
no,
in the context of development.
You are not the one to determine what conversation or what points to raise in any conversation. We are asking questions, this is what I'm saying. You are asking questions and you are giving yourself answers.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Africa.
Yeah, can you imagine that? Can you imagine? You wouldn't even imagine that she is talking to the president of a country. Can you imagine her trying to talk to Trump or someone like that? And I'm glad Kagame put him down. And that's why I put her down. And that's why I keep saying, we are a new breed of African. This ain't the same African of even 2 years ago. Because even our presidents are now realizing, yo, yeah, it's not business as usual, and it's not a very good place to be a puppet, you know. And we saw, I love the way Kagame said, yo, first of all, you're not even letting me answer questions. This whole report, the human rights report is ridiculous. EU's human rights report is ridiculous and rubbish. And I told you, a lot of these reports that come out of the EU and the former colonizers are done with their intentions at hand, their intentions in heart. So if they're able to release a statement saying, Kagame is not doing well, or his human rights record is not good, then they can now call in their human rights, the UN human rights, which is basically their jackals and their hyenas, to come into the country and further destabilize things. That's how they work. And, Kagame has actually been receiving a lot of criticism because he's been pushing the Africa Free Trade Area hard. And, at first I had actually thought he was a puppet of the West. I'm still, the jury is still out on that. But when he really pushed that hard when he was the Africa Union chair, right? And then when it was ratified, when the 22 nations, when 22 nations actually cleared it and came on board, it became official. The World Bank and others started to say that it was too soon for Africa, and Africa had better beware, and Africa needs to do this and Africa needs to do that, trying to dictate to us, taking on that paternalistic role once again, trying to tell us what to do with our lives. And so Kagame has received a lot of backlash because of that, and also because he's been pushing hard for African Union to start paying its own bills and for less dependence on foreign aid. So he's been really discussing that and pushing it hard with his fellow presidential colleagues of different countries and stuff. So it was no surprise. It was absolute. And then also, I'd even almost forgotten. Remember, I told you guys that Rwanda had actually adopted Kiswahili as one of the official languages, and they were literally putting French aside. And I told you there'd be some backlash. I told you. I didn't even need to say it, although I mentioned it. But there were so many comments when I did that, when I did the video about Rwanda adopting Kiswahili, where people were like, yo, watch out. Here come the negative reports, here come the negative stories, and here it is. And you can see clearly and blatantly with this lady that it's almost like she's answering her own questions. It's almost like they've been given an agenda. They've been told the narrative. Because first of all, you're given the questions, and then 24/7 you're being fed this propaganda that Rwanda's like this and Rwanda's like that. And I bet she's never even been. So this, shame on her. And I loved that Kagame actually called out the European Union. We'll be right back. I'll be sharing details. This got me excited.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Africa.
Permit me to say at this stage that Africa deals with diversity much better than Europe. Much better. If you look at your typical European nation, the Dutch is the Dutch, largely. The Swedes are the Swedes, largely.
Welcome back to Africa Watch on the Dr. Mumbi Show. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? And, Paul Kagame making news across Africa for all the right reasons. Africans are just cheering him on for calling out the European Human Rights Report on Rwanda, calling it ridiculous and rubbish, but even taking it one step further and having, growing some kahunas, growing some bleeps, because you guys say children watch this, where he said, Europe is violating people's rights with a problem of people being bundled and sent back to sink in the Mediterranean and so many people being mistreated in your own country. How dare you try and come and say Rwanda has problems? And I love this, because really one of my deepest desires and aspirations has been for the African Union and for African presidents to start calling out Europe and the US whenever someone of black skin color is mistreated, because you mistreat one of us, you mistreat all of us, and that's kind of the code we all need to be on. And I wish our presidents would be more on that code. You know what I mean? And, as much as I love the AU president to the AU ambassador to the US, Ambassador Dr. Chihombori, my greatest concern with her is she keeps talking a lot about this American, African marriage, but she's not talking about the mistreatment of our African American brothers and sisters in the US. I mean, every single time, and I know this is quite unrelated, but every single time an African American is mistreated, the African Union should release a statement. We note with concern that one of the descendants of Africa has been killed, has been arrested badly. That's when I'll know we're on the next level. But for now, we're just, people are just talking, people are just, empty mouthpieces. So Kagame, I love how he told her, Europeans, and this is the most significant thing, and you saw this in the break where Kagame said Europeans should stop having a superiority complex where they think they are the only ones who care about human rights. And that's the attitude the EU has done, where they kind of sugarcoat the drama that is going on in their own countries and the mistreatment that is going on in their own countries with their own people. Because Europeans, the way Europeans treat their poor people, you're better off poor in Africa than poor in Europe, I'm telling you. And, and he told them, and that's just something they always come and they always feel like they're the ones who have the best human rights record. Hello, the greatest genocide ever happened in Europe in World War II, Hitler. And both world wars started in Europe. So who are the greatest human rights offenders of the world? You know what? I mean, I even forgot. How could I forget? Slavery and colonialism. And yet these are the guys who think, who carry a superiority complex and try and tell the world how to treat people. They should come to Africa and ask us how to treat people. Anyway, I just love that Kagame really, told off this lady, this narrative. I keep telling you guys, we must control our narrative. I mean, whether Kagame is doing right or wrong, we have seen a lot of suspicious things happening. We have seen a lot of opposition leaders getting taken out. There was one who was recently taken out in South Africa in a very strange, under very strange circumstances. So those are the questions, but I always say these are things we need to deal with internally, but we need to have a united front against our enemy. Control the narrative, that's all I say. And Kagame showed us exactly how to do that. And it shows that our presidents aren't talking the way they used to talk. They aren't cowering away and taking the nonsense of the West anymore. It's a new day for Africa. Rise and shine.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.